Random House Audiobooks presents Star Wars, Darth Maul, Shadowhunter by Michael Reaves. Space is the perfect place to hide. The Neimoidian freighter Sakak cruised ponderously in the uncharted deeps of wild space. It displayed its colors proudly, its cloaking device disabled with no fear of detection. Here, parsecs away from the civilized galactic core and its surrounding systems, it could safely hide in plain sight. Even the Neimoidians, those past masters of paranoia, felt secure in the vast, endless abyss between the disk and one of the spiral arms. Yet even here, the leaders of the Trade Federation could not entirely let go of their natural tendency towards subterfuge. They sought duplicity and guile the way a young grub seeks the safety and warmth of its sleeping niche in the communal hive. The Sakak was a good example of this. It was, to all appearances, merely a commercial vessel, its horseshoe shape designed to carry large amounts of cargo. Not until an unwary enemy had come within firing range would the heavy durasteel armor plating, blasted turrets, and military-strength communications arrays become visible. By which time, of course, it would be too late. Aboard the Sakak's bridge, all was silent, save for the muted beeps and chimes of various life support monitors and the almost inaudible susurrus of the air filtration system. 3 figures stood to one side of the huge transparisteel viewport. They wore the flowing robes and mantles of the Neimoidian aristocracy, but their body language, as a 4th figure appeared in their midst, was deferential, if not outright cringing and servile. The 4th figure was not really there with them in any physical sense. The robed and hooded form was a holographic projection, a 3-dimensional image projected from an unknown source light years distant. Intangible and immaterial, the mysterious stooped image nevertheless dominated the 3 Neimoidians. Indeed, they could not have been any more thoroughly cowed had he been physically present with a blaster in each hand. The figure's face, what little was visible of it in the shadows of the hood, was grim and unforgiving. The cowled head moved slightly as he looked at each of the Neimoidians in turn. Then the figure spoke. His tone, that of one accustomed to instant obedience.
There are only 3 of you.
The tallest of the 3, the one wearing the triple-crested tiara of a viceroy, responded in a stammering voice.
That is true, Lord Sidious.
I see you, Gunray, and your lackeys Hako and Dauphine. Where is the 4th one? Where is Monchar?
Federation Viceroy Newt Gunray clasped his hands in front of him in what was not so much a supplicating gesture as an attempt to keep them from nervously ringing each other. He had hoped he would grow used to dealing with the Sith Lord over time, but so far that had not happened. If anything, these meetings with Darth Sidious had become even more gut-twisting and upsetting as the deadline for the embargo grew ever closer. Gunray did not know how his seconds-in-command, Dalte, Dauphine, and Rune Hako felt. Discussing one's feelings was anathema in Neimoidian society, but he knew how he felt after each encounter with the Sith Lord. He felt like squirming back into his hive mother's birth chamber and pulling the cloacal flap in after him. Especially now. Curse Hath Monchar! Where was the misbegotten rankweed sucker? Not on board the Sakak, that much was certain. The ship had been searched from the center sphere to the airlocks at the outmost ends of each docking bay arm. Not only was his deputy viceroy nowhere to be found, but a scout vessel with hyperdrive capability was missing as well. Put these 2 facts together, and the chances of Viceroy Gunray winding up as fodder for one of the fungus farms back on Neimoidia was beginning to look distressingly good. The hooded face turned to glare directly at him.
Well?
Sidious demanded.
He was taken ill, my lord. Too much rich food. He has a delicate constitution.
Gunray closed his mouth, keeping his lips firmly pressed together to stop them from trembling. Inwardly, he cursed himself. Such a pathetic and obvious prevarication. Even a Gamorrean would be able to see through it. He waited for Sidious to command Hako and Dauphine to turn on him, to strip him of his vestments and rank. He had no doubt that they would do it. For the Neimoidians, one of the most difficult concepts to understand in the galactic lexicon of BASIC was the word loyalty. However, to his astonishment, Sidious merely nodded instead of showering him with vituperation.
I see. Very well, then. The four of us shall discuss the contingency plans should the trade embargo fail. Monchar can be briefed on them when he recovers.
The Sith Lord continued speaking, describing his plan to hide a large secret army of battle droids in the cargo bays of the trade ships. But Gunray could hardly pay attention to the specifics. He was stunned that his desperate ruse had worked. The Viceroy's relief was short-lived, however. He knew that at best all he had done was buy some time, and not much of that. When Sidious's hologram again materialized on the bridge of the Sakak, he would once more demand to know where Monchar was, and this time he would not accept illness as an excuse. There were no two ways about it. His errant lieutenant would have to be found, and quickly. But how to do this without arousing Sidious's suspicions? Darth Sidious, master of the Sith, finished relaying his instructions to the Neimoidians and made a slight, almost negligent gesture. Across the room a relay clicked and the holographic transmission ended. The flickering blue-white images of the Neimoidians and the section of their ship's bridge captured by the split-beam transceivers vanished. Sidious stood motionless and silent on the transmission grid, his fingers steepled, his mind meditating on the eddies and currents of the Force. Those of lesser sensitivity were oblivious to it, but to him it was like an omnipresent mist, invisible but nonetheless tangible, that swirled and drifted constantly about him. No words, no descriptions could begin to convey what it was like. The only way to understand it was to experience it. He had learned over long years of study and meditation how to interpret each and every vagary of its restless flow, no matter how slight. Sidious nodded. There was no doubt of Gunray's dishonesty. The only question was why. It was a question that had to be answered, and soon. The Neimoidians were weaklings, true enough, but even the most cowardly creatures would rear up on their hind legs and bite if sufficiently motivated. They were plotting behind his back. To believe otherwise was to be hopelessly naive. Given how potentially important the Naboo embargo and subsequent economic machinations could be, there was really only one thing to do. Sidious made another slight gesture. The Force rippled in response, and the transmission grid beneath his feet glowed again. A holograph of himself was once more sent racing through the void to another remote location. It was time to bring a new player into the game, one who had trained and studied for years for precisely this kind of assignment, the one who comprised the other half of the Sith Order, his protégé, his disciple, his myrmidon, the one Sidious had named Darth Maul. The dueling droids were programmed to kill. There were 4 of them, top-of-the-line duelist elites from Trang Robotics, all armed in different ways. One with a steel rapier, one with a heavy cudgel, the third with a short length of chain, and the last with a pair of double-edged hachette fighting blades as long and wide as a human's forearm. They had come factory-equipped with behavioral inhibitors that prevented them from delivering a death blow once their opponent had been beaten, but these inhibitors had been nullified by their new owner. A mistake against one would be fatal. Darth Maul did not make mistakes. The Sith apprentice stood in the middle of the training chamber as the 4 droids circled him.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?